you something to complain about. I'm here with my conversation partner, A. A, how are you?
Hey T, I'm good. How's your week been?
Oh, it's been good. It's been good. I'm just getting old and cranky.
Welcome to the club. We really should just make some t-shirts, I think.
I
Old
think
and
so
cranky.
too.
Yeah, it's a
Old
good
and
time.
cranky.
Yeah, it's been a fun week. I had this conversation with a student of mine on Monday, and it really kind of made me think of something that we have talked about in some ways on our previous episodes, and I think we'll probably actually talk more about today and in future episodes. But I mean, she's late 20s, has a master's degree. She's working on her internship hours. So we meet every week, that kind of fun stuff. And she was really kind of exasperated. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on? I thought it was like work related. But she was telling me this story about her parents, right? Who are, you know, boomers, retired. They are apparently to her, they are traveling all the time, going on cruises, going to Europe, going to Japan in a month or two for something. I don't remember what it was, but she was really just kind of out of breath about how much fun they are actually able to have. Well, she at 29ish is master's degree, trying to be a clinician, and she is living with four roommates. She's like, I still feel like I have to eat ramen most days, which you and I can understand. Like, we made a
Hmm.
lot of ramen in our day, lots and
Yeah.
lots of ramen. And she was just like, she needed a little bit of time to vent, which is fine. That's what we can do that in those coaching sessions that I do with them. But she was just really, really annoyed because she is like, she kind of looked at the whole situation as like, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm not going to really be able to buy a house for a long time. I'm like, you're
Mm.
preaching to the choir, sister. I mean, I'm way older than you are, so I understand. um so she was just really kind of, she just vented a little bit, and at the end of the conversation she was just like, I don't really know what else to say. I was like, well, in my generation, we would just be like, whatever, and we just kind of walk away. And then the other day, I was sort of flipping through Twitter or whatever the heck it's called now, Exeter or whatever it is, and I came across this article, which honestly was sort of the same thing. It was in the Wall Street Journal. They posted it on X, and just the post itself was, it quoted the boomer parents, right, saying we have more fun than our daughter. Now obviously these are not the same people as my student, but the article
But
itself.
but it would be awesome if it were.
Oh,
That
it
would
would
be
be
great.
great. It would be so great. That would just give her all the more reason to be upset and wanting to utilize the actual title of this episode. But at the end of the day, like, the title is "We're Not Dead Yet. Baby Boomers, Good Times Drive the Economy." Okay. So, like, the whole idea here is, we've talked about this before, right? They've had this opportunity where they've been able to amass a fair amount of what we can call it wealth, I guess, where they're able to actually do a lot of these things, have a lot of fun, and their kids and grandkids are now stuck trying to deal with the world that we've all inherited. So I got her frustration. Apparently, it's not just her, because they published a whole article about it in the Wall Street Journal. But I thought it kind of was very interesting, considering like all the things that we have been talking about on this particular podcast. Like, these sort of examples just keep popping up. So it was an interesting, fun little conversation. I mean, she's exasperated, but I understood her frustration pretty well.
I think it when I mean I can see it, especially if, she's in her late 20s and she thinks about what her parents were doing in their late 20s, and where they were in life.
Yeah.
I could see where there's a lot of frustration with that. Um, it also makes me think of a conversation I had years ago with my grandmother when I was in my early 20s. And my grandmother came up to me one day and she goes, you know, when I was your age, I had two babies under the age of two and a third one on the way. And my response was, I'm sorry.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I, but
It's
I was
not
also
me.
the grandchild. I was talking as a grandchild to the grandparent. It, as you were sharing this story, I was thinking it does play into, again, this whole overall narrative of as history marches on and we look at things, the the perception that I always kind of had growing up was things are going to get better every generation, every generation, every generation.
Hmm.
And some things do, but I think we're coming to see now that we've got one, two, three, four generations behind the boomers,
Hmm.
that what they got to experience is the anomaly,
They
not the
did.
new norm. But that message or the reality is just getting kind of started. And I really think kind of the overall, um, not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a sentiment, but maybe the vibe is we got ours, too bad for you,
Yes.
which, again, I mean, it just kind of, we always talk in broad generalities when we talk about generations. But again, isn't this just one more cherry on top
Yeah.
of, you know,
Yes.
we've known for quite some time. There's a lot of, generation wise, boomers are known for being very selfish, narcissistic, um, cutthroat in a lot of ways, and they have benefited from a lot of stuff that previous generations sacrificed and fought for them to have, and then it just kind of stopped there,
Yeah.
and we're not seeing that progression, and being passed on. There also was this kind of piece of like, I'm never going to die. And
Yeah.
um, and even that, well, we're not dead yet. Yeah, but time, to quote the Stones, uh, time is not on your side.
Right.
Which is another response that I gave to my grandmother one time. She was complaining about a vaccine rollout for H1N1.
Oh,
And she was
yeah.
complaining because it was going to children and I think pregnant mothers at the time. She was
Yeah.
80. And I said, well, time isn't on your side. Um,
I bet she loved that.
she did. And since I was like in my late 30s and I should have known better, I'm the one who got yelled at.
Not surprised.
Which is also, which is also the story of Gen X, right?
Right. And you were, what was your response? Were you a whatever kind of responder?
I was like, what? I was like, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, because truly, whatever. And that, in a way, and I kind of hate to say it, but I really don't, is whatever to this because there there is not one thing I can do about it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like I can lend an ear, I can sympathize, in a lot of ways I can empathize, but
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. We're in the same boat.
Yeah. They managed to pull the ladder up behind them,
Yeah.
and the
And
rest of us are stuck trying to find a way to scale the wall.
yeah,
And we're gonna keep doing it. Like there's just no way around it. I think the I don't want to I don't know if misery is the word I should use, but the misery seems to be compounding as we go into further generations from them, right? I mean, we
yeah,
definitely as Gen Xers, we got screwed. but Gen Z and Gen Alpha are getting screwed in harder ways, I think, because we haven't been able to, as a generation, right the wrong, so to speak. Like we can't fix it. First of all, there's not enough of us. We're the smallest generation, right? We're the smallest generation. There's not enough of us to fix it. And the honest to God truth here is most of them are still in some kind of power position.
Right.
So they're not willing to fix it, whether it's political or even just familial, right? Like, or business oriented. I think we talked about this in one of the last episodes that people
Yeah.
are staying, boomers are staying in their jobs longer, preventing everybody else from moving in and moving up, or moving up and
Yeah.
then moving in, however you want to think about it. So I think
And
that
now
becomes
and the rest of us are like, have you seen World War Z
a
with
habit.
Brad Pitt? And there's this scene where all of the zombies just start climbing over each other to get over the wall in Jerusalem. Yeah.
Okay.
Boomers are Jerusalem, and everybody else, we're the zombies we're just piling on each other, trying to
Yep.
cross the wall into the promised land. Um,
It makes you
so
wonder
yeah,
if we could create an alliance between the generations if we could somehow dislodge them.
like we need to become organized, right?
Yeah, I
We
think
need
so.
to become, but then I sit and I go, whatever, because I think with you, like our last episode, we talked about some of the core values of Gen X, and I think one that we missed and the article missed is the realism. We
Mhm.
are realists
Reality
and
based.
reality based, and are well aware of because we tried bucking the system and we got beat down and then we learned our lesson and it it really does become, I think, what I myself believe is the core essence of Gen X, which is whatever.
Hmm. That's us.
And what do we mean by whatever? Exactly what it says on the tin. It means we're just done. When you hear a Gen Xer say whatever, we're done with that conversation and we don't care.
Yeah.
We might not have even cared to begin with, but that's our sign. We're done. And I think I was introduced to that word while watching Sesame Street circa probably 1978, 1979, because I don't
Hmm.
remember ever not using that word. And it used to drive my mother nuts because she would see it as a dismissal, which
It was.
it it is, but it's also uh again to use an older phrase, it's keeping it real, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like I can sit and talk about oh yes, let's form a resistance. I've been waiting for a revolution for years. But the thing is I just don't have the resource.
Hmm.
So whatever. In the meantime, I'm just going to carve out and manage what I can and
Right.
deal with what I can and not worry about anything else.
Yeah. In some ways, it's an expression also, I guess, of exasperation, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
I I know that I can't solve this problem, and uh, so I'm just going to not care at this point, right? There's
right,
not a solution that I can affect here, so I just stand back. And
yeah,
my way of shutting down the focus on it, I suppose, for lack of a better word, is just to be like, whatever. we don't do this part anymore, but there was also a note in one of those articles about the phrase talk to the hand, right? That was absolutely something we did in middle school and high school and probably even in college, I don't remember. What was interesting to me is that they added a clause behind talk to the hand that I had never heard before, which was because the face don't give a damn, which like I'd never heard that piece of it before. It was always just talk to the hand, and maybe that was because we were particularly lazy
I
about it. Just talk to the hand was more like
I
we're
I
done.
remember because the face ain't listening
Hmm.
is what I but also, I mean, it was just yeah, 99% of the time it was talk to the hand.
Yeah,
And the implication was there that like we're yeah, we're done.
we're done. And everybody understood it was dismissive, all of it, right?
Right.
Our parents did, our teachers did. And interestingly, I think it didn't just stick with Gen X. Like millennials also are pretty good at whatever. I don't know if they're as good as we were, but they use the term too. I don't know about Gen Z, I guess. I don't know a ton of Gen Zers, so I may not be a good judge of how well we passed along the exasperation. Uh, I mean,
It,
they're all experiencing it anyway.
with the few Gen Zers I run around with, they are still, I think for the most part, like young enough that we haven't quite beaten out all of the hope and optimism and thinking that, someday things will will change. They are more um I don't know if I'd say open to dialogue, but they just seem to be, and I think I've said this before, like a lot more savvy and more open to, yeah, to kind of having that conversation and gaining that understanding. Um, because they truly are like the very first, like truly multicultural, most diverse group. And
Yeah,
so they are still trying to piece together, some of that understanding and that common ground, I think, which I think is good, which is, and they're very quick to point out injustices and and things like that, which I don't some of that might be power in numbers and the power of social
yeah,
media, which we didn't have.
for sure.
Um, and I have broken now two hair ties
Whew.
today, in like an hour. Sorry, everybody. He's having a crisis, a hair crisis.
It
But
happens.
but yeah, I think with the whatever, it ties into again like the skepticism that we've talked about, maybe even a bit of nihilism. I think
Yeah,
the thing that we maybe not we as a generation, but I forget because we were still pretty young, like when the Berlin Wall fell
yeah.
and and that what we would have been, what was that, 88, 89.
Um, it was before that because Reagan was still president.
And there were like a lot of negotiations and things going on for a couple of years. I know even before that, that even the fear of the bomb, I
Hmm.
don't I don't remember that being so real like it was like for my mom as a boomer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, and I guess I haven't asked my husband since he's a bit older than I am if he ever had, but I don't remember. Like it was always just there, you know.
Yeah, you're
But
right. Actually, it was November of 1989. The Berlin Wall
yeah,
fell.
okay.
I
Because
remember.
I
I just remember Ronald Reagan standing there on TV, like tear down this wall kind of thing. But this would have been right after he left the presidency. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
we
all
had a
that
piece of
kind of,
it. Interestingly enough, we somehow got a piece of the Berlin Wall. I remember having that in our house growing up.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember my mom's family not hearing because it was in Germany. And
Yes.
we've had
Well,
conversations
it
about
was
how my mother's family felt about the Germans. So,
my mother's family escaped East Germany, so it had it had some purpose. Yeah. It was on this tiny little piece of wood. It said Berlin Wall. I don't remember what else, and
oh,
it was secured. Believe it or not, it was secured by a piece of barbed wire.
my goodness.
Yeah. So you had to be careful with it because you could poke yourself, which is kind of like everything else in our generation, right? Like nobody cared if we hurt ourselves. But yes, it was secured with a piece of barbed wire.
I, I just remember, I remember watching so many news reports with my grandpa, and I swear he made a comment about like they can't even tear down a wall right.
I mean, he could be right. I don't know.
Message I got from my family. But um, I think though, I mean, to kind of go back to, I don't know if I would really call it nihilism, maybe for some other Gen Xers, but I don't think I've ever felt like nihilistic, cynical, yes, skeptical, very much so, but
Yeah.
nihilistic. Although there is always a piece in me that's like, give me 2 seconds. Let me grab the gas can and some matches, and I'll just start dancing around the bridge. But
Any bridge, right?
any bridge,
Yes, I my my T is fond of saying that I am not shy about lighting it on fire.
yeah. There's one of my favorite Bob Dylan lyrics goes along the lines of strike another match, go start anew. And I'm like, yep, maybe, but is that nihilism? Because you want to start anew. I thought nihilism was just like burn everything down and we go with it.
Yeah, I think nihilism is always just nothing matters. Nothing matters at all.
Um,
Like who cares? Like nothing matters. So I don't necessarily think we're particularly nihilist. I'm sure there are probably some Gen Xers that are, but I think that that's maybe a step too far. Whatever isn't meant to be, we didn't really necessarily mean it in a nihilistic way, as in we don't give a crap, nothing matters, it doesn't matter what anybody does. It just was more of a resignation, right? We
right.
can't do anything about this. I can't do anything about this, so stop talking to me about it. Or I've devoted as much brain power as I can afford today to this particular problem. I'm done.
Or or simply choosing not to participate
Yes.
in the conversation. Because
Yeah.
I've used that a lot. Like, I know a lot of people are very, very political.
Mhm.
And I am one, and it may have been just from the way I was raised, but I was raised, you don't ever talk politics. Like, you don't even talk politics in your family. And so to me, it's like, it was politics, religion, and sports. You want to start a fight, talk about one of those three things. And nobody's ever converted anybody to a new religion, political party, or team over a conversation. So
Right.
I just nope out. I guess that's what the kids would say now. I just nope out, back out.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the whatever equivalent. Um, except now that I've used it and I also say I nope out, that's probably not cool anymore. So they're using something else. Because
It's probably true.
we are of the age by the time we figure out what something means and then we use it, we're like eight slang words behind the current usage.
I mean, I think this is why whatever is just immortal. We just keep using it. We're not going to stop using it. It's better than noping out. It's better than everything else. It's just whatever.
Well, because I think noping out means it insinuates that you were engaged and now you're done. But with whatever, it leaves open the door. Did she ever care or did she not?
She didn't, most likely.
Was she? Yeah, I know, right? It's that whatever has that apathy to it.
Yeah.
Whereas noping out means there was an investment at some time and now I'm done. But whatever is is whatever. One of the best words in the English language.
Well, and I think apathy is a better way to talk about it than nihilism, right? Like I think we learned that
Yeah,
also because of the way that our parents, just as a generation, our parents were kind of like, okay, solve it, right? What are you going
right.
to do to fix it? And that was their own way, I think, of whatevering us. Even if they didn't use the term, they wanted us to figure it out for ourselves. And maybe they wanted
Mm.
us to figure it out for ourselves. Charitably, we could say that they wanted us to do that because they wanted us to learn how to be self reliant and independent. But the most likely reality there is they just didn't want to have to do it. So they wanted us to figure it out. I mean, because
Yeah,
let's get real, kids are complicated. So it may have just been like, go figure it out. You got to learn this for yourself, kind of thing, which sounds like it's not bad parenting. And I'm not saying it is bad parenting because that's probably not true. But like, that was their way to whatever us. And then we just figured out a way to label it like, okay, whatever, we're out.
it, this whole conversation is stemming from again that article that we introduced in the last episode um, that was talking about bringing back Gen X values. And the article itself, and I think this sums it up so well, is whatever and talk to the hand may
Hmm.
seem to be flippant responses, but they are the correct way to deal with other people's nonsense. And that's pretty much how I see it. It's just nonsense. Like it's noise, don't want to get involved. I'm
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. And that's, I think, also a lot of what is going on around you, right? Like, is
Right.
this really something I need to put energy into? And more often than not, we figured out the answer is no. There are other things I have to put energy into, and energy is not a infinite commodity, right? You just don't have it's not always there in big amounts. You have to just do what you can.
Memo to 20-year-old T in the alternate universe. You, first of all, will not always have the amount of energy that you currently have, 20-year-old T, and there is a finite amount. And your first level of depletion will happen at about 30, then 35, 40, and then about 45, it just starts entering free fall, I think.
It seems about right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sort of nature's way of saying whatever to us, really. Like,
Like the universe hasn't told us whatever,
yeah, it
whatever.
is it is the reality of our generation. Everybody
Well,
basically whatever does.
but um I think though the article brings up a great point that this is something that should be kind of brought back, especially since we see, oh my goodness, so many people's identities wrapped up into politics and fandom and all these just things that again are tied to stuff that we as a generation just really didn't buy into. Like, there's always been a bit of like political apathy as far as, like for me, have I ever missed an election? No.
Yeah.
Um, but I also, every time I go to vote, even in local elections, and I always have a debate in my head. Well, should I go vote? Should I not? And then I hear my mother's voice going, "You didn't have your grandfathers fighting World War II and preserving our freedom for you to be lazy and not go vote." So then I guilt vote.
Right.
But
Yes.
the political activism, and stuff, that just isn't, I don't have that. And I don't see that a lot with our age group. And maybe
Right.
it is just because we are the age that we are, but um and I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. Um but then also too, then you see individuals like, I keep seeing these things like, for example, these stupid Stanley mugs that
Yeah.
everybody now has to have a stupid Stanley mug. And am I wrong, or were those like the old thermoses that, like, I think my grandpa had one? His
Yeah. I
old
think
metal
so.
were those okay. So, but again, this kind of this collective, very cliquish, cultish groupthink with so many of these things that are then tied to these different ideologies or corporations or combos thereof. And that's where I agree with the article that we just need to kind of bring back whatever. Who I vote for doesn't make all of me me.
Right.
The type of cup I drink out of is not my entire identity.
Right.
Um, and it's all just like whatever, because there'll be something new next month or
There will
something
be.
new next year.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, we all need to bring back whatever and just, yeah, whatever.
I
I'm
wonder.
tired.
I I wonder if in some ways the younger generation is actually doing that. They're way more, I think they're way more politically involved than we were. I think part of that is because of the online culture, right? We did not
Yeah,
have any of that. We barely had email when we were in high school and college. It was hard to search the internet when we were in college, right? Like that was not,
yeah,
I mean, I feel older than dirt saying that, but like we did not have like that just is not the way it was. So our ability to organize required a ton of energy, probably a ton of money. We didn't have the ability to do that kind of stuff because most of us were just kind of trying to survive. Whereas
mm,
now everybody has a phone and everybody can be on the internet at the same time and every you can communicate with people. I mean, just think we just created Facebook
yeah.
group, TikTok
But
group, whatever that can
with
reach a
that,
bazillion people very quickly. Couldn't do that before.
with that, everything is so data driven
Yeah,
that you end up in all these very niche areas. You're pigeonholed in areas. And so there's like this data driven creating your personality, and it just amplifies it.
hmm.
That concerns me,
Yeah,
because then you get people who are hyper political, hyper. I mean, I just think of like how many people have I, especially from Facebook, because I've been on Facebook forever. How many people have I like stopped following or like remain friends but blocked because every time I would open my page, it's just political crap. And I'm like, I have my own political beliefs. You can believe whatever you want, you know, what whatever, which is part of the reason why we're in the mess that we're in. But whatever. What
yeah,
show me cute animal photos. Really don't even want to see the kid photos. Show me the cute animal photos
Yes.
Um, and that's what I want to do. Um, but yeah, yeah. So
Whatever.
maybe our so maybe our apathy has helped create the this whole thing. It makes me think of, oh no, and she was so awesome. Theology in college
Hmm.
with sister, I won't say her name anyway, but you'll know who I'm talking about because she was awesome. She taught the Catholicism class. And anyway, I remember her talking about, and I've read about this later, and it's very chilling to me, but the more I see it, the more I believe it's true. She talked about how uh, good and light is energy. Like you create good, you
Hmm.
create light, you create that which is, and sorry, I'm going to be getting all theological here. All that is sacred and holy. You have to actively create and maintain it. Looking at it in those terms, then evil is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Doing nothing can be just as evil as acting in evil. So now
Yes.
I'm wondering, now I'm getting all meta here and going, so what role do we have in the grand scheme of things with whatever?
Well, theologically, that's a whole nother episode, probably. But um, yes. Well, I think that's a fair question because we I think there's also a capacity issue, right? Like I think for most of us, we didn't have the capacity to create a lot of that because we were sort of drilled and driven to being somewhat more apathetic, right?
Yeah,
People weren't
that's true.
creating light and energy and goodness around us when we were like in our formative years. That wasn't happening. So it's not, I mean, I hate to like say it's not necessarily our fault, but I think to some extent, yeah, you're right. We didn't we didn't really make it better.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, like we we've checked out, and there's reasons why we've checked out, never checked back in, but every action or inaction provokes an opposite and equal reaction, right? Now I'm
right.
talking, is that chemistry or physics?
It's physics. It's the laws of right thermodynamics or motion or something.
But yeah, it's one of the, yeah. Well, sadly, I have taught this concept before to students. My apologies to any students. I'm not a physicist.
It is Newton's third law of motion.
I was gonna say, because I taught that a couple of years ago, because I was like, oh, I need to review this before I cover it with my student. Um, but really, what can we do? So,
We can encourage the generations that are younger than us to continue their advocacy and maybe take a cue from them as long as we have the ability to do it. We we just I mean, as you noted earlier, after you hit a certain age, you're I think it's also interesting, right? Like we've never had a Gen X president. I'm not even sure we've had a Gen X vice president. We don't have
mm,
anybody like Gen X has sort of stayed. We don't have a ton of Gen X people in politics in general. Um, so I feel like most of our generation just kind of was like, we're totally skeptical about it, right? We mentioned this in the last episode. Skepticism, not just of everything around us, but definitely of authority. We weren't particularly interested in becoming the authority, which I think is where we would have linked politics to. And now we've got
Yeah.
an entire generation that is looking back and going, you've left us a steaming pile of dog crap, and we need to start fixing it. So they have the means to do it in ways that we did not. Like I said before, they can organize in ways that we can't. So they
Right.
don't have to necessarily whatever it. But for us, it was just like, we're one person, you are one, I'm one person, you're one person. Our generation didn't have the ability, I think, to make as much of an impact as this generation will.
And again, I think it kind of goes back to just being realists and knowing what's in our power, what isn't. I remember again back in college, they were tearing down an old building and walking by. I remember walking by and there were like five students protesting it.
Hmm,
And I just remember thinking like, what's the point? There
right.
is no point. And I think that's part of it too, because we had seen so many grand gestures and noble gestures performed before us and seen how all that played out.
Hmm.
Like Kent State, growing up knowing about that. I ain't gonna be trying anything. Yeah,
Right.
I, I have what to do, take care of my own stuff. But yeah, I think that kind of ties into that whole, yeah, yeah. But I do feel bad because time will tell, and I think time is starting to tell that maybe there were some things that we, though limited in numbers and limited in power and resources, um, maybe there were some things that maybe we should have done that we didn't do.
It's possible.
Or maybe we just wait for the numbers to rise and then we just kind of, you know,
I
we'll,
think that's
we'll,
the plan.
that's a
That's
plan.
the
I,
plan. The people that I keep seeing on TikTok on their little videos, like their short little videos in Gen X, were just like, you know what? We're ready. Let us know what you need us to do. We will support you. We will be ready to do it. You know, call me up if you need me. But like, otherwise, just don't bother me. Which is, again, whatever. Like us just saying, let us know or leave us alone.
it's still the whatever. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
we're
tell
never
me,
gonna
how,
not whatever. We will be whatevering until we breathe our last breath, and our last breath will be a whatever to the world. So it is what it is.
yeah, the last the last words I ever say to you are going to be, "What's the frequency?"
I hope so. And nobody else will know why, but that's okay. We'll be good. I mean, and on that note, I mean, that's kind of a fantastic place to end, I think. So,
I do,
for our
I do too.
audience, huh?
And I really think this has been the most glorious whatever conversation. We were all over the place, and
And we don't
I
care because whatever.
exactly, exactly.
Let us know what you think below. Always, of course, be civil. Be sure to like and subscribe. Share with your friends. Check back again next week for something new to complain about. Or don't. Whatever. T, it's been fun.
It's been fun. Make sure that you also follow us on TikTok and join our Facebook group or whatever. I'm
Exactly.
tired. And I know you all are tired as well. So just whatever you want, whatever. But we will see you next time.
Indeed. Have a good week, T.
You too, and everybody else, be good or whatever.
Right?
Just stay
Whatever.
out of jail. Just stay out of jail.
That's a good goal.